Now, what is the HA switch plate? So the HA switch plate is a 2.4-inch Nextion or Nextion. I don't know how I'm supposed to say it, but I'll say Nextion. The touch panel. So this is a 2.4-inch touch display, a D1 Mini, power supply, and then a PCB that Luma designed to make it easy to put all these things together. And what it does is, what it really is on this D1 Mini is a sketch that Luma wrote that makes a bridge between the funky, unique language that the Nextion display understands. The command language that this thing uses is not normal. It's not like C+ or Python or something that like most devices would use. It's their own little proprietary command structure. So in order to be able to get this to work with Home Assistant, Luma made a sketch that becomes a bridge between MQTT and this funky language. Okay, so that's what it is. And these are the parts that you need. What we can do here with this switch plate is once we get it set up, we can have buttons on it. And he's even got it with examples for alarm panels and weather and a bunch of things. But essentially, the basics of it is you can have buttons on this switch plate that you can push that will control things in Home Assistant. Fantastic, right? This here costs between, depends on where you get it and what their prices are currently, but $15 to $17 for this. These are $5 for this, so we're in the 20s. This usually 3 or 4, right? So you're getting in the high 20s. And then you figure you've got, well, these headers will come with it, and the PCB board, if you say $5, it's got to come from China. Somebody's got to build it. What I've done here is I took the PCB first, and when you buy the D1 Mini, it comes with a bunch of headers, right? It comes with a bunch of different styles of headers. So what I did to make it sort of modular, you could just solder the D1 Mini directly onto the board. But what I did to make it modular is I soldered these headers onto the D1 Mini. So now it has these sort of down pins like a Node MCU has. Node MCU comes with them. In D1 Mini, you have to put them on yourself. So I'd solder those on here, and then solder on these sort of receiving female headers onto this. And it's important which side you put them on. I got one, I put it on the wrong side, and I'm still trying to repair that one. But put it on this side so that you can, it says Wemos, that's where the Wemos goes. That's where the D1 Mini goes, on that side. So I want to put it with those things up. I did this also. I put a little short header on this because that's where we're gonna connect these jumpers for the display. And then what else did I do? Oh, I soldered on a little piece of extension cord. So this is extension cord. This is where the AC voltage will connect. The 120 for us in the States will connect. And then that's it. It's pretty simple. So now you can put in, this is a very specific power supply. Okay, this is what's important. It's the IRM-03-5. Okay, and that's this power supply. Well, I just wanted to tell you at the very least that this is how you do it. You put this. This will then go on here, and then once it pops through those holes, you can solder the power supply down there. Then you just pop the D1 Mini into here, and I'm pretty sure. Let's see Yep. It goes this way so that the USB port, the USB connection on the D1 Mini is on the opposite side from these extra other pins that are over here. And then these you connect to down here just like it says. So 5 volts goes to 5 volts. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so that's it. So this one's got about, another minute worth of soldering to do here, and we're ready to go. So now we're going to take one that I did already solder together. Like that. And we are going to connect a display. So we've got this guy here. We're going to take a brand new display out of the package. Now, one thing I will tell you about the connecting the display is, let's see, right here, is what Luma did on his instructions. If you follow his instructions, One of the things he did was he took a heat gun and he took off this little connector right here. And he did that so that he could make it a little more flat on the back. So you wouldn't have maybe quite the bulk, and you would have a little bit more space. I took my little clippers, and I kind of just cut off the metal parts here and then pulled it off. But there was still enough force a couple times to dislodge some of those things. But yeah, if you want to take those off, that's probably a great way to do it. Do what Luma says there. His latest way is probably the best way. Clip those off or cut them off with a little blade, and then you can just pry this whole thing off. And then you can just tap these little tiny pins with a soldering iron to pull those off. Okay, so now there's two flashings that we need to do. Okay, one of them is for the Nextion display. So Luma's got for us here all the files that we need, and I've got them in a folder. You have to essentially flash the display, and you have to flash the D1 Mini. Okay, you go to the GitHub page. You can download, what I've done is just, you download the whole thing right over here. Grab this whole thing, download the zip, because you're going to need several bits out of it. You're going to need a lot of bits out of it. You download this whole zip file, and then you'll have this folder structure here. In this, I think it's here, the Nextion HMI. Yes, you'll have this HA switchplate.tft file. You see that? So that file is what you're going to put, what you're going to put on the display. Okay. The display has a little spot on the back here where you can put an SD card. So I'll skip the step, but essentially all you have to do is get a micro SD card, like this little guy here, little micro SD card that is formatted as FAT32. That's important. And then you just copy that switchplate.tft file onto this card, okay? And then you plug the card in to there, just like that. And then I'm just going to put this SD card with Luma's TFT file into here, like that. Just pop that sucker in there, and then I will fire it back up again. Power it back up. Now it's gonna see that card in there and the file on it, and it will just start booting up. It says check data 100% update successful. So we're done. It's done. So now I can unplug it again. I'm gonna take out the SD card. Okay, so now I'm just plugging in the D1 Mini into my computer through the USB. No big deal. What I've done, so Luma's got instructions on how to use a Node MCU, the Node MCU downloader or Node MCU flasher. I've used my mainstay, which is Flash Easy, and it works. Inside this Arduino sketch is a bin file, HA switchplate ino.d1mini.bin. See that? So I just copied that file, just dragged it and dropped it into my ESP Easy folder. And it's right there. Okay. So now I'm just going to use Flash Easy, just like I do for everything else. Okay. So then I select the COM port, COM6, because that's where I've got it plugged in. Then select, oh, that's a sneak peek. If you can read that, it's a sneak peek for a future awesome update. All right. HA switchplate ino.d1mini.bin. Here we go. Flash. Boop. Okay, so now you can see this says HASP initializing. Dun, 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 dun. So we're done with the flash. The flash worked. We can go shut that down, shut that down, shut that down. Now I thought was genius. Okay, look at that. So what you got here, see that? What you've got here is a QR code, right? It's a QR code. That's awesome. So I take out my phone and I point it at the QR code, and it says, do you want to join this network? And I say, well, yes, I do want to join that network. Thank you very much. And so once I've joined that network, that's how I set up my Wi-Fi and such. So now it's giving me this page here where I can put in my Wi-Fi. Configure Wi-Fi. And there you go. I can select my Wi-Fi, and then I can put my password in for my Wi-Fi, and I can name it. I'm going to name this one. What should we name this one? I already have one for the office. I'm going to have one for call it master, because it's going to go in the master bedroom. All right. Now we're going to do the MQTT broker. This is all the standard stuff you have to do for pretty much everything with Home Assistant, right? And my password, it's got my Wi-Fi user and password and MQTT broker, IP address, user and password. And important thing here was to name the node. So we're going to call this a node, and it's the name that I gave it is master. Okay. So done with all that, I'm going to hit save, and it's going to do some more magic. All right, now, if you can sort of see the display says it's connected. It says it's connected to Wi-Fi, and it says it is connected to my MQTT broker. Got over here now is a file that is called deploy.hasp.sh. See that? There's several different ways to do this. Luma's got them all laid out for us, depending on which way you're using Home Assistant. So if you're using just a regular Home Assistant install, then there's one way to do it. There's a manual way to do it. And if you're using Hasp.io, like me, then there's this. Okay. Now, to get this to work, you have to be able to run a command from the command line. I think probably the easiest way is if you're using IDE, I think that will work. So let's go to my Home Assistant now. So we'll go here to Home Assistant, and we're going to go to Hasp.io. We're going to go to the add-ons that I have. I have IDE running, and we're going to open the web UI for IDE. When you log into IDE, the username and password that you use is the same that you use for your user to log into Hasp.io. Okay, so here we are. We've got one of the nice things about this IDE is that you have a command line down here. So now I can just go to what Luma's got for us here, and I can start copying and pasting into this command. We put that in, and I hit enter, and now it's telling me. It asked me what my device name is going to be, and I put master. So now I'm going to do that. Okay, so that's it. It did it, right? So let's see. Now, do I need to restart? I can't remember. Once that process completes, you can restart Home Assistant server and apply all the changes. Okay, so let's do that. So we go back here, configuration. I like to always check my configuration. So now we're going to go to restart. IDE plugin. Now's a fine time to talk about the IDE plugin. If you go to the add-on store in Hasp.io, is it on the official? I can't remember if it's on the official. Nope, it must be on the community Hasp.io add-ons. And right there, it's this one. Once you do this, once you've got these HA switch plates running, if you just do reload automations, things get messed up. So unfortunately, once you start using these, just the nature of the way it is, and it's a bug that Luma's put in a request to fix, or at least hey, this is what's wrong, somebody help fix it, for a long time, and it hasn't been fixed. But once you start doing this, you won't be able to just reload automations. You'll just have to restart all of Home Assistant when you do that. Sorry. So we've got our switch plate up, and it's connected to MQTT and all. So we're going to now do the next step, which is load this first time setup. Click on this first time setup, and then just click trigger. And now it's going to do a bunch of stuff. There it is. We're connected again. All right. Now, and it's connected here too. Holy smokes. Look at this. It's working. It's working. Look at this. We've got buttons. We've got buttons. Yay. Woo! It's all set up now. Congratulations. We have now set up an HA switch plate. We should call these Luma switch plates, to be honest, but he probably doesn't want that. But that's what we should call them, unofficially. All right, so we've set it up and it is running. Now, there's a few things that you can do here in this page here, which is on this tab up here at the top, now there's a tab that says master. What I want to tell you is what you can do with this master page selection. So in this master page selection, you can change what page is displayed. Oops, we're not seeing the display now. There it is. Okay, so if I put this master active at the top to 0, then it will show page 0, which is the page that just says you're connected. If I go to page 1, it will show this basic page that's got some scenes. And the scenes are, you know, you want all the lights on, if it's daylight, so maybe you want them dimmer, or if it's daylight, so you want them brighter, and then it's night, so you want them dimmer, things like that you can do there. These are just examples. Okay, this isn't actually going to dim any of my lights as it sits. You can then go to page 2 and it will show some weather, 24 degrees, the date, the time, and that it's cloudy outside. Okay, so anyways, you can just go through this, and Luma's got us set up, what do you got? Nine different example panels, example screens for us to play with. Okay, one of them, that last one was for a 3D printer. It shows kind of a graph. That's kind of a cool feature. So you could show trends of sensor information. This one has a media player. This one is an alarm keypad. That's cool. This one is just some blank buttons for you to play with. This one is some sliders. These are sliders. I don't know if you can see them, but you can slide these with your finger. See, sliders. Like that. So if you have dimmers, you can dim things, or volume controls, right? So that's cool. What else we got? These are more lights and dimmers. And then this one, I think this one's pretty useful too. This one's got just some lights, basic lights. Okay. All right. Now we need to get to doing something with the automations, right? We're going to get, so what I want to do now is show you basically how to get this switch plate right here to control your lights, the lights that you have in Home Assistant. All right. So here we go. The way Luma's got this set up, which makes it very easy to distribute to all of us, is he's got it set up so that it uses packages in Home Assistant. So now if you go to my config folder, you see I've got a folder here that says packages. And inside that packages folder, I've got a bunch of other things. Most of it is YAML files, I think, right? Or maybe all of it's even YAML files. Yep, it's all YAML files. Okay, so in my simple understanding of what happens here with packages is, now that we have this packages system working, I can put any YAML file I want in here, and it will pretend or it will act like it's part of my configuration or my automations.yaml or whatever. Okay. So Luma's got a good explanation here of how some of these things work, but I read it and it's very clear after I understood it, but it took some experimenting for me to be able to understand what was going on and start learning some of the names, right? Subtopics and some of the stuff that you need to understand to make this work. So, but the basics are this: when you set up one of these switch panels, you're going to have it's going to have MQTT topic that it will respond to, and that is HASP/ and then the name of your plate. For this one that we're using today, it's master, and then you've got command or state, or most of them, and then some subtopic after that, which is going to be, in most cases, something like this, where it's a button. So what we're getting into here, let me go to the examples again. All right, we're going to look at this scenes page first. Let's look at the scenes page first. Sure. Okay. So what we've got here, this is just an automations file. This is one of the ones in the package. And what he's got here is everything runs off an automation. And let's walk through it. Okay. The beginning of this automation is the trigger. And the trigger is just anytime that the switch plate is turned on. Okay. Anytime the switch plate is turned on, then all of the stuff that is listed after action is what's going to happen. All right. So the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to send an MQTT message. MQTT publishes the service, and it's going to send it to HASP master command, and then P1 B4, and P1 is page 1. So the topic is HASP master command, and then P1 B4, which is page 1, button 4. Now, the way the buttons are numbered on here, the way that Luma set it up for us, and he did a great job, and it makes it very easy, is the buttons are, the 3 buttons along the bottom are button 1, button 2, button 3. And then starting from the top, you've got button 4, button 5, button 6, and button 7. Okay, so if I want to send a command to button 4 to set the font, that's what this is doing. And the payload is 2, and 2 meaning it's 2 is a good way to do this. A good way to do this as an example is using something like MQTT lens. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. This isn't the way to do it to get your HA switch plate to actually control things. This is just a way to kind of give you an example. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to publish a message to the topic HASP master /command /P, which one? This is P1, isn't it? P1 button 4, and then I'm going to change the text. So the last part here is .txt. And what I want it to say, we're going to have it say, we'll just have it say crown, because that's my crown molding lights in here. So that's what we'll do. And we'll set that. Okay. I'm not going to set it to retain. Don't do that for now. So here we go. If I click this, oh, look at that. On this display, it changed. It now says crown at the top. Can you see it? It says crown. Now, if I want it to say something else, I'll have it say Dr. Z's, just because. And it now says Dr. Z's. So that's the basic concept behind all this. Now, if what I wanted, that's temporary. Using MQTT lens like I just did is a great way to play with it and figure it out. But if I want it to really stick, then I need to change it in these examples. Or you could also just add your own new YAML files. But the automations are going to be in the same format. In this particular case, if I want it every time it starts up to have that text on there, I would have to change it here. So instead of lights on, then I would have to have it say, crown lights. Now, when it starts up, anytime that HASP master status becomes on, meaning the thing was started up, then it will show crown lights in that box. Is that clear? Okay, so you can go through this and you can use Luma's examples, and you can change the names, and you can change them in here, and then when you restart it, they'll change. And they'll stay with whatever you put in here. It'll stick. Okay, let's change the font size. So here I wrote font as the last bit of my, subtopic. And then down here, I want the font to be bigger. So we'll make it 3. Let's see what happens. Boom, look how big that got. Oh, if I can pick it up. See, look at that. Now look how big it is. Okay. And if I change the payload, this is the payload where it says message here, that's the payload. So if I change the payload to 1, now it's going to be super tiny. Okay. So now let's have some fun, because this is great. It's kind of black and white, serviceable. This is an example, right? But what if I want to have colors? Oh yeah, you want colors, don't you want colors? Yes, you do want colors. So let's change the color. To change the color, you make the end of this thing BCO. Anyway, so what I was going to say is, if you want to change the color, so what I changed was font So this was part of my subtopic, right? It was font. I changed text. I actually just wrote TXT, right here. And that changed the text. Now I want to change the colors. So there's to change the colors, you change the foreground with PCO and you change the background with BCO. Okay. And then, as Luma was pointing out, the colors are funky. They've got these funky Nextian color codes, and they're a 565 16-bit color code. And it makes me sound really smart when I say that, like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. Okay, it's not your typical hexadecimal codes that we're used to using, or HTML names, or it's just this funky thing they decided to use. Whatever. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I will change the background of this button to Home Assistant Blue 1374, and then I hit publish, and you can see it turned blue. Sweet. And if I want to change, because blue, now the black font doesn't show up so well, I'm going to change that font back to big. Let's change the font back to 3 so we can see it. And you can do more than one of these. You can actually, well, let's not talk about that. You can make it so that you do several things in one command. So if you do, I think it's X string, XSTR, and then you can do a bunch of these. You can do the font size, you can do the colors, you can do text, you can do a bunch of them in a row, but don't worry about that. That's just to tell you that it's nasty, that it's possible. All right, so now let's change the PCO, and we'll make the PCO, well, white is what, 6, well, let's go back to this thing, and this is white, 65535. So we're going to go 65535. 65535 and publish. And now it's white. So now you can see it. Yay. Okay, cool. Okay, last thing we're going to do is we are actually going to control a light with this button. Okay, this Dr. Z's button is going to control a light. Okay, now to do that, we need a new automation. And the automation trigger is going to be the state of that button turning to on. If we go back to MQTT Lens for a second, and if I subscribe to a topic, we're going to copy most of this. If I subscribe to HASP master state, and then put this little number sign here and subscribe. Now, anytime that one of these buttons changes states, I will see it down here. Let's just get rid of all this. Okay, so if I click this button, there you go. See that? You see how that popped up? So what that does, this is really useful if when you're doing this. Well, when I was trying to figure it out, using MQTT Lens like this was a good way to do it. Now that I understand it, I don't need to do that anymore. But if you're just playing around, this is a good time. I get a feedback of what the messages are that were sent. So the messages that were sent were HASP master state P1B4 on. Capitals, both are capitals, capital O, capital N. Okay, so now I know what my trigger is going to be. I'm going to say that anytime page 1 screen, well, this is seen, but page 1 button 4 is pressed. Anytime page 1 button 4 goes to on, then I want something to happen. Well, what do I want to happen? In my case, I am going to make this switch toggle. And then the name of my switch goes here. Switch office light. Okay. Now, because I did it here, unfortunately, in order to do this, right, in order to make this work, I've got to have it, it's going to have to restart Home Assistant again. So we can do that. We need to do it to make it work. So let's do it. We'll go back to Home Assistant. I click this, the light will come on. There it goes. Can you see? You can see it on my face. The light comes on. The light goes off. We did it! Yay! All right. So that is the super basics. We got a switch plate together. I don't know how much anybody who is really learning for the first time is going to be able to follow a lot of that mess that we just experienced over the last 2 hours. But we did it. We got through it all, and we set up an HA switch plate. We set up the NextDN display. We got it connected to Home Assistant. We messed around with customizing it a very little bit, just some basics on fonts and the structure of the MQTT topics and how you have to put that together. And we got it to control one of my lights in Home Assistant. So that's actually a good first day.
As always, thanks for watching. Until next time, adios.